themselves and what they're working on?
I always like to tell people about branding is all about knowing your customer. And I'm not saying like knowing like their age and their gender. I mean like all facets of what they enjoy doing, what do they spend time thinking about, what are their problems, what do they expect out of people. And the more you know about your customer, the easier it is to really solve their problems through your products or service. And that's essentially what branding really is getting your customer to know what is it that you are offering them, and they can look at your stuff and say, that's for me. Mm-hmm. That's what I need in my life.
When you're trying to figure out your customer and their likes and dislikes, how do you how do you come up with that in the beginning? Before, because I know, when you probably get more sales, you're able to figure out kind of more where they are based on the analytics. Mm-hmm. But in the early days, you have a new product, and so do you ask people first, and then do you create the product? How do you approach that aspect of it when you don't really know the details about your customers yet?
You actually even just said it. That's how I originally started with mine, was to ask people's opinions. Like, do you like it? Don't you like it? What about you don't like? And and definitely reach out to as many different demographics as possible. Mm-hmm. Just because if you do it like, say, in college with a bunch of college kids, they're definitely going to have a different opinion than, say, an older crowd. So it's definitely best to diversify the different feelings that you get. And then you realize, like, oh, man, my target audience was actually younger than I originally wanted to be.
Okay. Well, that's great. So if somebody is then just starting off, so I guess here's another question on that one. Do you recommend people brand themselves or brand a product if they have an option first?
Ooh, I guess it depends on the personality. Okay. If you're outgoing, engaging, and want to be a part of people personally, then I can definitely see a personal branding. But, if you're someone like me who is definitely reserved and wants to just create the better world based on whatever I do, then I would focus more on the product. Mm-hmm. Because, the thing about being like a designer is a lot of your work is thankless. A lot of people see my work and they enjoy it, but they never really know who is behind it. They never know me. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, like, I'm totally okay with that. Some people aren't. Some people want to be in the spotlight and want to feel credible for everything they accomplish, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just about knowing which personality you are to know which one's the best fit for you.
Oh, sure. So as someone who has a lot going on, how do you approach your work-life balance? Like, do you have a set of routines that you do every single day, or how do you structure your day and your time?
The fun thing about being a designer is that I would say it's more of a lifestyle than an actual career. Okay. Because you're always thinking about design. You're always breathing it in for everywhere you look. So I wouldn't say that I never really am stopped working per se, or about thinking of new ideas. That's what I notice about the successful ones, and from the good ones, is that the successful designers, they're always being about design. It's just everywhere in their life, and they're always consuming it. That's why I always got to say, like, and it helps with the work-life balance, because when you're not working, you're still thinking about it. But when you do work, there is not a little downtime between what should I do? I don't have any ideas, and it really flows together. But to prioritize my day, what comes, I always go like personally for questions through emails. That's always the number one personally for me. Mm-hmm. I always like to connect with people. These are the ones that they're actually taking initiative to know about me and my brand than, say, just a random person or a random design work that I could just constantly do. But because of my success is based on the other person's reception of me, I have to know that they are come first and foremost. So I definitely would say that for anyone to really focus on the people who personally contact you, because these are the ones that are actually interested in knowing about you.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. Why did you decide to start a podcast?
When I'm all about doing the motivation with my prints, I've already started to realize that like I kind of need to be able to walk the walk if I'm able to talk the talk, because if I'm posting all this motivational stuff on social media and talking with people in my life and they know me personally, like, you're not a part of that. That's not who you are. And I don't want to be seen as a fraud. I want to see as like I can actually say what I'm doing. And that's already helped me become a better person, because that was the actual push that I needed in my life. So that's how I started with my podcast, just because it coincided with really what I want to do with my motivation, as well as my personal problem of public speaking. Because, as an introvert, when you're in a group of people, your energy just drains. And then you deal with anxiety, and then you deal with stress, and all this builds up, and it just makes you feel terrible. But that's kind of like one of the things that you kind of need to do. But also, I don't want to do it. So I just had to think, what was a halfway point between that? And that's what was podcasting. Okay. I actually, able to have an audience, but be able to do and cover my home. I can wear my jammies. I can do it right in my bed, and be able to connect with an audience on a more personal level than, say, an email or a social media post.
Well, that's great. I'm actually wearing a 3-piece suit right now. I'm not wearing my pajamas.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm totally joking. Totally joking with you.
Oh, man, I was going to say, man, you are so much more professional than I am.
That's why we're not on live video right now. Excellent. So I'm curious, because, you've done a really good job of doing things that kind of put you out of your comfort zone. How do you approach fear and overcome it? And those times when you do feel like you just kind of want to, not put yourself out there and not try anything new.
Oh man, there have been times I felt that way. I'm trying to, when it started, when I deal sales, it was always just so difficult, because I just don't want to do it. I'm scared of what other people thought of me, and I wouldn't admit it. I want to say I take pride, like what I do is great. I'm a great person, but it's just deep down, it's very difficult. So that's one of those things, like, you kind of have to bite the bullet and say that, if nothing good would happen to you if you always try to believe that it will come to you, because I just never believe that's ever going to happen. If you really want success, you have to go after it. And when I look at any successful people, sure, a lot of them had rich parents, or they just had got a really good standing of where they were with their life. But for the average person, like, they had to knock on doors, they had to send emails, they had to really connect with people. And you realize, like, if you want to be successful, you kind of have to do that. There really isn't any other way, especially in this year, in this day and age. You really have to connect with people, or else no one's going to find you. No one's going to care about you.
What would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever heard was a quote from one of my art professors. He said, "The difference between me and the absolute beginner is that I don't get frustrated when I mess up." What made it special was because of the underlying humbleness it required to be successful, I believed. We all face failures, but yet we react differently to it. So that's what I would say.
Sure. I think that's great. It's, it's that ability to just get up and keep going over and over and over again when you do fail and things get hard. That's wonderful. And it sounds like that's what you've been really good at over these years.
Yes. I really did enjoy my professors. It's not so much about the actual art skills, even though that's definitely what I came to college for, that I definitely gained, but it's about the wisdom about how they handle these things, about dealing with problems, because that's the problem a lot of artists face. Like, there's a lot of people that don't really feel they get any recognition for anything they do. It's always against the wall. So you kind of need to know when to say that my work is good and I'm deserving of doing this for a living.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Nick. I really appreciate your time. If somebody would like to get a hold of you and see more about what you're doing, what is the best way they can do that?
First and foremost is my email address at nick@typoprints.com. That's always the number one way to reach me. Okay. Other ways are social media. I definitely will get to you, but definitely number one is email.
Okay, great. I'll be sure to put that in the show notes so people can just click right through and contact you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Nick. This has absolutely been a pleasure.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Advance Your Art podcast. If you like this episode, please go into iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button so that every single time I release a new episode, it will go directly to you without even thinking about it. If you're interested in hearing older episodes, please go to advanceyourart.com where you can find the catalog of everything I've done so far, as well as contact information and projects I'm working on. Thank you again, and have a great day.